Welcome, everybody. We're here for a pretty special day, and that is to announce the qualifying events for the 25th anniversary United States Disc Golf Championship. And I've got a special guest here today, somebody who I've known in my 6 years here at Innova. He is not only the executive director, but he's a great coworker of mine, and he is very involved in both team and many things Innova. He was a part of Innova before the championship, and excited to have Jonathan Poole here today to share with you not only the qualifying events, so stay tuned for that at the end of our little catch up here, but to also give you a little bit of a brief history about his time at both Innova and the championship. So welcome in Jonathan Poole, or as we like to call him, JP. What's up, man?
Oh man, just getting it done in the sprint here to the holidays, but glad that we can catch up here and talk a little disc golf and some USDGC.
You're a behind the scenes kind of guy, I think, to a lot of people, if for no other reason that you are so busy in planning disc golf's biggest event. But I'm fortunate in that you and I get a lot of FaceTime. You know, you're a big part of our marketing conversations. You bring a lot of good insight both to the history of Innova and also just word on the street. So stoked to have you here today, JP, and give people a little rundown on what you mean to Innova and also your role at the championship.
Well, I am wrapping up my 26th year with Innova. I have worked in the Eastern sales office. Carolina Flying Discs was the original company when I started with Harold Duvall back in 1997. So I was fortunate to meet Harold and to go to work with him in January of 97. We ran the World Championships in Charlotte, so I had an opportunity to learn the tournament director role and the ropes and the roles and responsibilities with not just Harold Duvall, but I mean other Hall of Famers, Carlton Howard, Alan Beaver, Steve Lambert. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So I landed in a pretty incredible spot. And then, 97 was an incredible year. We were, Innova was growing, growing like crazy. In 98, we basically established Team Innova. I remember I still have the actual proposal that I sent to Harold and Dave to create the team. There were a few sponsor players like Ken Climo at the time, but there was no team in disc golf. So that was kind of how I started 1998. And, I was running tournaments at a smaller, kind of local level, but, really had my eye on doing something bigger. And so later in the year in 98, Harold and I had a conversation about creating, a true major for disc golf. At the time, there was just the World Championships, and it was floating around from town to town, much like it still does today. And it was very difficult. It's difficult now. It was definitely harder, even so then, for a club or a promoter to get one shot at Worlds and to get it right, and do it really well. And it took all that you could do just to get the basics of the event down for 400 plus people on multiple courses. So what wasn't happening were there wasn't a lot of media, there weren't ticket sales, there weren't posters, there wasn't a lot of fanfare. And I just kind of felt like disc golf was ready for that. And so we started talking about this new event later in the year in 98. And then by October of 99, we ran the first United States Disc Golf Championship. And alongside that was, at the time, it was called the Women's National Championship. So we ran those, simultaneously there in Winthrop and used actually Hornets Nest in Charlotte for the ladies. And so we ran the first two Women's National Championships. And then in 2001, changed the name to the United States Women's Disc Golf Championship. And it obviously has grown on to kind of move around the country and turned into a pretty incredible event in its own right. But that was that was my fast start. That was 97, 98, 99. And so, served as a co-founder of the USDGC and, have been the event director ever since. So 24 consecutive years of running a major, not including the women's events and the other events that I've, been a part of in one role or another. But the time is, in some ways it's kind of flown by, but here we are gearing up for, our 25th anniversary celebration at Winthrop.
Looking back over, 24 plus years of it, what has changed in your mind, or what is the magnitude of the qualifying events and that whole series mean to the championship?
Well, one thing that has changed over the years, and I think this is important because the USDGC was always a unique event in that it was our goal to bring, our very first year, the tagline was one division, one champion. And so we wanted to bring the top masters players together with the top open players. We wanted the best ladies in the world. We wanted the amateur, world champions. We wanted to have this, collection of all the top players across various divisions competing on, taking the same test. And so, the qualifying process for many years was such that if you went to the Memorial, for example, I mean, obviously the open division was qualifying for the USDGC, but if you played in any other division where the challenge was identical in terms of the pin placements and the tees, it was up to the TD, but in many cases, you were also eligible to qualify if you shot one of the 5 best scores on the weekend. And it created an excitement at those events for players. And, it really just sort of set this event apart. And over more recent years, now with the media component and the creation of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and not just here in the United States but in other countries, now those events have become qualifiers almost exclusively, and so it's definitely a little harder to get in now. I mean, if you're not on tour and super competitive on tour and kind of committed to that lifestyle, it's very difficult to make it to Winthrop. So there are still a few events. I think that's something we can touch on when we reveal the list, but there are some smaller events that are important geographically. We try and spread the events out as best we can geographically to give the greatest number of players a reasonable shot to get in.
Well, we could go on, and JP and I will definitely find opportunities to meet up and share some upcoming news with the USDGC. But for today, let's get to the qualifying events, and let's kick it off with our United States qualifiers. And here is the list.
So yeah, pretty excited about this. The one thing that's different this year, it used to be where it was the same number of people qualified at every event. To be able to accommodate more events, especially internationally, this year we're going to take 4 players from each event here in the United States. And then as we look at the international list, we're going to take 2 from each international event. So half the number, but when you see how many more events we have, I think, the international, professional community should be pretty excited.
Well, let's stoke out our international people by bringing that list up. And here you go. Here's the list of the international USDGC qualifiers.
Yeah, so obviously, heavy emphasis there on the Euro Tour. I believe that we have, I think it's 9 of the 11 proposed events on the tour. We wanted the best spread possible. I mean, disc golf has been booming throughout Europe in particular, and you're seeing European players year after year. Their representation gets stronger. Not just abroad, but here in the United States, and so we want the championship to be, the best players in the world, not just in the United States. And so, hopefully, players will appreciate the diversity with the qualifiers, from a global standpoint, more so than ever. And acknowledging not just the players, but these tours. The Euro Tour, there are other tours, throughout the world that are really coming along. And, we want to support and honor and acknowledge those efforts in the same way that we've always done so here with the PDGA Tour and then the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So it really is a nod to where professional disc golf is going worldwide.
it's really going to be a celebration for you and I and a lot of others at Innova too, in that we've got the 25th anniversary of the championship. We've got the 40th anniversary for Innova and its founders. A lot going on, and pretty cool that Innova has been presenting partner of the USDGC since day one, and looking forward to just seeing you next year, dude, and celebrating quite a bit.
Our team is stronger than ever. I mean, every year we get another one of these under our belt. And, it's the tournament staff and the family that has really built this and been a part of this for decades now, in my opinion, is really what sets the USDGC experience apart from many other events. And there are dozens and dozens of fantastic top tier events around the world now. I just hope that we can continue to be one of them, and we can do things and try new things that inspire and continue to, to motivate other event promoters and TDs and tours to strive to be their very best. I mean, disc golf's awesome. The game and the community is awesome. So the game is worthy of that effort. The players, especially the top tier, the life commitment and sacrifice that they make to perform at their best. The game deserves events like this. And, my passion has always been for the players and the community and these experiences. And one of the other things that's changed is the fans. For years it was the players and their immediate friends and family and caddies. And, now we're bringing 4,000 or 5,000 people out. Just thrilled that we have a chance to play a part in making history for a game that has over 26 years defined most of my friends and family and work life. And, just super fortunate and grateful to be able to do what we do.
This was a pretty cool piece of news to share with everybody today. Thinking about the championship, JP, like what's next on the schedule that you and I can meet up and share with people?
Well, one, I think, important thing for the ladies to know, we are excited about bringing the Throw Pink Women's Championship back to Winthrop for the third year. These first 2 years, the qualifying has been very similar. Fewer spots because that's a smaller field, but it's mirrored pretty closely, the qualifying procedure for the USDGC. Obviously, with this many events, we are in the process of tweaking that a little bit with Sarah Nicholson, the founder of Throw Pink, and kind of one of my co-event planners for that championship. So we will have some more news to drop at some point, specifically for the ladies, so that they can understand what it will look like to punch their ticket to Rock Hill. But I'm sure a lot of other exciting news. Like I said, we're well ahead of the game in terms of planning. Planning for the 25th anniversary event was happening during the event this year, and there are a lot of things already in place, and teams are already coming together, and you can expect one heck of a blowout celebration when we all get to Rock Hill in October.
Yeah, and as you and I both know, that's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, well, gosh, the season kicks off quick. First qualifiers in February, and we've got this big industry conference that's a new thing for the sport. That's pretty exciting. Pro Tour and Disc Golf Network are ramping up. I've had great meetings already with Jeff Spring here to end the year. They're really excited about what's going to go down for them. Obviously, tours around the world. The Euro Tour is revving up, and what a great time to be a player! What a great time to be a fan! What a great time to have a full-time position of any type in disc golf. And I think there's a lot more of that goodness to come as disc golf just continues to explode.
Well, congratulations again to all of the qualifying events that were announced today. JP, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to jump in here and share the news with the fans. I think people, both fans and events, are going to be pretty stoked about the news. And yeah, man, have a great holiday, and let's get ready to jump back into it in the new year.
You too, man. Merry Christmas. Best to you and your family and the Innova squad out west. It's been a great year, and we'll get a chance to catch our breath here over the next week and a half or so. But January 2nd is right around the corner, and we'll be right back in the saddle, ready to go.
You know it, bud. All right, man. See you soon.